As a background to this topic, I want to just point out, most of us realize as we come in here that we have very common classical business concerns that we're trying to address. Almost all of us have some form of sales effectiveness that we're trying to get in front of, right? Customer retention. Anybody here have customer retention challenges that they're trying to get in front of? And a few nods, okay. Cost management is always there. Compliance is a pretty critical one, especially for most attendees here, as well as customer satisfaction. Now, whether or not you're directly responsible for these customer-facing needs or metrics, your organization, I mean, that's how you make money, right? And even I'm in healthcare, right? Your customer is your patient. And you need to be able to provide them information and create a relationship between your company and your customer that's can stand the test of time and can provide them value, well, so you get paid. The real issue with these challenges and traditionally has been, how do you get the information that you collect at that point of contact, and how do you make it usable in other ways? And that was actually quite funny. How do you make it usable so that you can learn from it and improve the way you're interacting with your customer base, or, quite frankly, understanding the changes in your market? And for those of you nodding when I say things, it really helps, because that means A, you can hear me, and B, I'm making sense. So, yeah. So as we look at this, the other thing that comes into play is, as you're aggregating this data, quite frankly, you're participating in what is the evolution of analytics, and we've all lived through it. And I went back 30 years. I think that's fine, right? That's long enough. 30 years ago, 1996 was the first emergence of your commodity traditional business intelligence applications. How many of you remember when those first came and hit your company, and you had the ability to say, I want these reports, and you could go get them from a place centrally and they'd run for you? And what were you looking at? You were looking at data from last month or last year, right? And that was really how it started. At that same time, though, there was, as people were looking at what happened previously, there was an emerging trend to say, okay, well, if I know what happened previously, let's start looking at why it happened. What occurred and why did it happen to us? This is really being pushed largely in the biomedical field as well as in manufacturing. But it quickly started to gain traction in the financial services as well, because they were looking at, what is it that's making my customers go away from me, and what is it making them that they're being attracted to others. And we know some of the hallmarks of those things that are emerging, right? Quite frankly, from even if you, how many of you read the book or watched the movie Moneyball, right? Well, even though Brad Pitt didn't look like he was 30 years older in that movie, the fact of the matter is, that was in 1998 when the A's were really starting to put together predictive analytics and saying, okay, if I know what happened and I know some of the things of why they happened, why don't I start turning that into telling me what might happen, what things I can do? And that becomes pretty critical, because that was one of the underlying business models for Amazon. Most people forget that before 2001, Amazon wasn't making almost any money. They were losing money. But they were able to begin to make money in Christmas of 2001, because when there was the anthrax scare, people said, well, maybe I'm not going to go to a mall and buy. Maybe I'm going to try this online thing. And because they had put in analytics engines around what things people wanted and what were the trends, and they put it in front of people their first time kind of doing online shopping, people actually bought more than anyone ever expected. And it changed a little bit of the way we think about how we think about online and how we think about using data itself. Now, 2006 is pretty notable for a couple things. How many of you have heard of big data? I think everybody's heard of it more than they want to. How many of you heard of Hadoop? Okay, there's a few. Let's props to you. Are you IT people? I'm just curious. Okay. Hadoop is one of the underlying technologies we use for big data today. But what's interesting is it actually came out in 2006. It just wasn't enough infrastructure, fast enough servers to run it. And so there were very few organizations that were taking advantage of it. One of them who had plenty of infrastructure was IBM. And they came out with their Watson product, if you will. It's a product now. It was an experiment, and basically what it did is you take real-time questions, Jeopardy, and they compete on against former Jeopardy champions, and what it would do is you'd get a statement, and then it would search real-time across millions and millions of records to find the answer to the question and then pose it in the form of a question, which is sometimes harder than it looks. And it actually beat reigning champions, former champions. And the reason why this is significant is because for the first time now you have real-time analytics processing millions and millions of records, finding something that it didn't have organized for that particular purpose, unstructured search. And suddenly now...